And we keep testing people who work on dairy farms. They test positive. They're not sick. And? Or are we getting a positive because they're actually infected? Can't tell, don't know. Hi, I'm Dr. Judy Morgan, your pet's advocate, and I have information today about a new vaccine for our dogs that I'm not real thrilled about, and apparently others are not as well. So this comes from John Fleetwood's Substack, and it is titled, USDA approves new dog flu vaccine that may trigger PCR positives. So that's a test. No public safety data, and Elanco, the maker, cites 2005 study on a different product as their justification for releasing this. What? That's 20-year-old research? It's a different product? How does that even play in? His question is, could vaccinated pets trigger PCR tests to justify fake influenza outbreaks? Where have we heard this before? So the US government approved a new flu vaccine for dogs that may inject pets with genetic material capable of being detected by PCR tests, raising the alarm that pet vaccination could be used to fabricate outbreaks and justify authoritarian pandemic measures. Now, I'm not here to get into the politics of any of this stuff and pandemics and all that stuff. I just want to talk about how these vaccines are going to affect our pets, and with this particular article, how are they even going to affect us? This could have broad implications way past what we're doing to our pets. So on July 9th, the US Department of Agriculture, USDA, granted full approval to Elanco Animal Health's TruCan Ultra CIV, which is canine influenza virus, and it's got two canine influenza variations in it, the H3N2 and H3N8. So they published no peer-reviewed safety data for this new specific product. I don't know how they got away with that. Instead, it promoted the vaccine using a 2005 study on unrelated vaccines. So there has been a canine influenza vaccine on the market for many years that includes these two strains. I just want to say I might have given, in my years in practice, one tray of maybe 10 doses of that vaccine over the time that it was available. It's not a vaccine I believe in. It's not a vaccine that I think all of our pets need. Unfortunately, it is a vaccine that is being required by many boarding, grooming, daycare groups. I think it's falsely recommended, and it is not needed by 99.9% of our dogs. So these flu outbreaks occur in very, very limited situations. So one of the biggest outbreaks that occurred many years ago was at a dog show in Georgia. The judges are not supposed to open the dog's mouth to look at the bite. The owner is supposed to handle their own dog. But one judge decided that she or he was going to open the mouths to look at the bite of all the dogs. One of the dogs happened to be carrying the influenza at the time. It was not sick, and she spread it from dog to dog to dog to dog, she or he. Then all of those dogs went back out around the countryside and went to a lot more shows and agility and all these other things, and guess what? Yeah, it showed up all over the place from one bad decision. That's how these things happen. So usually when we see a flu outbreak, it's a veterinary clinic or a boarding situation where a dog comes in, it's sick, nobody knows it, and all of a sudden all the dogs have been exposed, and then we have a major problem. Usually it tends to be more in veterinary clinics where sick dogs are being housed, where sick dogs might be in an isolation unit. We did, way back when, there were a couple of veterinary clinics in New Jersey that had to shut down and clean everything because they had a big outbreak because they had sick dogs in the hospital. Okay, so back to Elanco and getting this vaccine approved. They promote it using those 2005 study on unrelated vaccine, 3 internal studies that they won't reveal to the public. What? And 2 USDA licensing documents that simply confirm regulatory paperwork was completed, not that the product is independently safe or necessary. So the rollout occurred just as the governments around the world are ramping up bird flu vaccine campaigns, funding gain-of-function H5N1 virus research, which is the bird flu, and prepare for the possibility of a zoonotic pandemic. PCR testing could detect remnants of this vaccine itself, classifying vaccinated pets as infected instead of vaccinated. We need to be able to determine, are they infected or are they vaccinated? And this could trigger a pandemic, kind of what we have seen with bird flu over the past year. We test a bunch of dairy cattle. They come up positive. The cows aren't sick. Nobody's getting sick. The people aren't sick, but we keep testing them. And we keep testing people who work on dairy farms. They test positive. They're not sick. But all of a sudden we want to vaccinate all the cows and we want to vaccinate all the people, and now we want to vaccinate all the dogs. Despite marketing the new shot as the only half ml, so the old one was 1 ml, this is now a half ml, oh goody, there's less, bivalent, which means it's got both flu types in it, vaccine for dogs offering 100% virus neutralization and 0 lung lesions post-challenge, so when they try to infect the dogs after they vaccinate them, they don't get lesions in the lungs. Their press release justifies the claims with data on file studies that were not subject to peer review, so they were done internally. Well, again, if I do a study and I want the results to come out one way, I can do that. And if I never have any of my peers look at the study to see if I did it correctly, I can just stand on my laurels and go, yep, it was right, but I don't have to show anybody those results. USDA summaries used for basic product licensing and no external evidence verifying safety in real-world conditions. They further imply safety by citing a 2005 Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association study that evaluated adverse events in 1.2 million dogs vaccinated with the now defunct Fort Dodge product, not with the TruCan PureFill or any influenza vaccines. In fact, their TruCan Ultra product line didn't exist when the study was published. This is brand new. So if you're citing a 2005 study, you're talking about the Fort Dodge vaccine that existed in 2005. The timing of the new veterinary flu shot aligns with a sweeping global campaign to prepare for an avian influenza pandemic. Oh boy. And that pandemic, we know, has been constructed through gain-of-function bird flu engineering in the US, in Georgia, Japan, China, Brazil, South Korea, and the Netherlands. They are making fast-tracked poultry vaccines, which are being conditionally approved without public data. So again, here we have all this internal stuff. We're not going to tell you what it says. And there's been a large amount of money put toward making a universal flu vaccine, which that's a sliding scale that keeps changing. Africa is now vaccinating 200,000 chickens with one of 3 H5 bird flu vaccines in the country, each containing viral genetic fragments that could be detected by PCR tests even in the absence of natural infection. So again, we're vaccinating all these birds, and then if we want to test them to see if they have bird flu, we can't tell on that PCR test, are we getting a positive because they had a vaccine, or are we getting a positive because they're actually infected? Can't tell, don't know, and we're going to have the same problem with our dogs. In the US, Zoetis was granted a conditional license for an H5N2 poultry vaccine, even though the circulating strain is H5N1. That's like, I'm going to vaccinate you for measles so that you don't get mumps. I don't think it works. No public justification or safety data has been released, prompting this reporter to submit a FOIA request to the USDA for answers, which is great, great, great. FOIA requests are probably, Susan Thixton does them all the time with pet food. It's one of the best ways to get answers to some of our questions. Unfortunately, when I did a FOIA request to FDA on pet food, they gave me some results 9 months later. A lot of stuff was redacted and a lot of stuff was useless. So sometimes you don't get what you want anymore. The US is also injecting cattle with experimental mRNA bird flu vaccines developed by NIH and USDA in partnership with Pfizer-linked patent holders without disclosing long-term safety, tissue persistence, or food chain risks. That's a problem. How are we putting vaccines in our animals, not knowing what the side effects are going to be, not having long-term studies? I know that recently FDA has fast-tracked a lot of things for drug approvals and for vaccine approvals. Yes, it used to take 7 to 12 years for a pharmaceutical company to get a drug approved by FDA. That's because it took 7 to 12 years of studying and injecting and seeing long-term effects. You don't know what long-term effects are when you look at something for a month or 2 months or even 12 months. That's the problem with a lot of the drugs that are released for our animals. Whose animal is the guinea pig when a new drug comes out? Every single owner who has that drug used on their animal within the first 5 years of it being released, your animal's a guinea pig. Your animal is one of the statistics that is going to be used as to whether it has side effects or problems. And remember, they estimate that about 1% of side effects actually get reported. When we see these drugs like pesticides and monoclonal antibodies that are being injected into our animals, and all of a sudden we're getting all of these complaints. Once it hits the market, it is so hard to pull it back. So hard. I don't care if we have hundreds of thousands of complaints, hundreds of thousands of dead animals. It is so hard to get these drugs pulled back because based on my own conversations with FDA, they say it's not enough because millions of doses have been sold and maybe a few 100,000 had a problem. It's too small. Well, not if that one of those 100,000 was your animal. His next question is, could vaccinated pets trigger fake outbreaks? Well, sure, they're going to test positive. If a flu vaccinated dog tests PCR positive for influenza RNA, even without illness or infection, those results could be treated as outbreaks. And then we have problems. And then our dogs are not allowed to go places. What if you want your dog to get into boarding or daycare and they say, well, you've got to have the flu test and your dog's been vaccinated and now your dog comes up positive and it's no, your dog can't come in. And oh, by the way, your dog has influenza. You better watch out. Your family might have influenza. When nobody has influenza, we have a vaccinated animal with a positive test. There were some cat vaccines that were made years ago. And again, we had the same problem. We couldn't tell whether on a test that was positive, was it positive because it was vaccinated or was it positive because it actually had the disease? That particular vaccine that I'm talking about actually did get pulled off the market. Glory be. Doesn't happen very often. You know, our concern is we don't have enough information on this vaccine. It didn't get the testing. They don't show us the data. They're comparing results from a 2005 study on a totally different vaccine. Would I ever vaccinate? Well, no, I didn't even vaccinate my, you know the answer to this. I didn't even vaccinate my clients' pets for this thing. There's no way my dogs are ever getting near this thing. First of all, I just don't think that influenza is a huge problem for our dogs. I don't think they all need to be vaccinated. If you go to a boarding or daycare or grooming facility that requires influenza, personally, my recommendation would be find somewhere else. That's why my dogs don't go to any of those places, because I'm not going to do that to them. Totally up to you. There's a lot of questions about this vaccine. Really not thrilled with messenger RNA vaccines to begin with. We don't know about the shedding from these. We don't know about the side effects. We don't know how this changes in the animal's body. And for our food animals, we don't know how it changes the meat, the milk, the eggs. Way too many questions and not enough answers. If it were me and my veterinarian were recommending that I get the Trucan Ultra CIV H3N2 H3N8 vaccine for my dogs, I'd say no every way I could. Up to you. Palmitoyl ethanolamide, also known as PEA, I started using it with my own Cavaliers, and I was so impressed by the results that I decided to make human-grade, high-quality PEA available for other pets. After successfully using Dr. Judy's PEA on cats, dogs, horses, and donkeys, it continues to be one of my favorite tools to have in my toolbox. Take 15% off any size of Dr. Judy's PEA using code YTP15 at naturallyhealthypets.com. That's YTP15 for 15% off any size of Dr. Judy's PEA at naturallyhealthypets.com.